Detroit Business Hub Group Director Nancy O'Neill works with her team of experts. Listen to conversations with business professionals to discover the latest business innovations, insights, and trends. Find out what's hot and what's not in today's business market.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today I have with me a special guest. He is one of the charter members of Detroit Business Hub Group. His name is Mike Rizzo, and he's also the organization's company videographer. So, Mike Rizzo, I'll let you further introduce yourself.
Nancy, thanks for having me. I'm a guest. I'm not a special guest.
Okay.
I'm just here. Glad to be here. I think you did a good job. Nothing more I would add at this time.
Okay. It was so funny. I don't know if you watched the interview with me and Raj, but I actually did you get to see the video or the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was like, we started live and I'm like, hi, Mike, welcome to the show. And he's like, who's Mike? I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh no, Nancy, I lost you. Well, that's unfortunate. And then this is the kind of technical difficulty that you encounter when you do what we do every day. And unfortunately, that's something that we've had to deal with in COVID, is that we've all gotten used to video conferencing and dialing in from who knows where. And in Nancy's case, she's broadcasting from Rizzo in Ferndale today. And no, it's a great venue, but sometimes you have Wi-Fi problems. It happens to all of us.
Oh my goodness. There's nothing like being live for anything.
That's I mean, you gotta take those risks and people appreciate it.
Yeah, it's just
I joke to everyone every day. The time that we used to wind up getting stuck in traffic is the time that we spend getting our Zoom or whatever set up exactly the way we need to. And every meeting starts 5 minutes late, regardless. Whether that's because you were getting there or because you were getting set up on your internet.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad that we're both here. We've never had Wi-Fi problems here, but I guess there's a first time for everything. Like I said, this is what happens with live show business. So there is nothing like the pressure is on.
That's live broadcasting, Nancy. We'll roll with it. We'll be all right.
Well, I really do miss the times where we used to videotape and Mike spent hours editing our polished pieces and he helped me with the scripts and, maybe we say the same lines 2 or 3 times. So that makes a big difference being on there live and getting the Wi-Fi cut off.
But that gets to a very good point about the notion of business and video. And that's that for different audiences and for different purposes, there are different levels of acceptable material. No nonsense, but like your core marketing material has to be a level of polish and a level of care that, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. But something like a regular podcast, something with more of an informational format where it's about, keeping people up to date. No organization can go to the kind of expense that real heavily polished work. You can't do it that high end all the time. We're not Apple.
Exactly.
Can't all look like that.
Right. That's definitely true. Did you see the blooper with Oprah where she fell? Like she's in front of an international audience and it was live and she fell down. And I'm not laughing at Oprah. I'm just like, that's just like a perfect example of like some things you just have no control of.
Yep. If it can happen to Oprah, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, and she handled it so gracefully. She said something like, oh, I must have put my shoe on the wrong foot, but she got right back up and just kept going. And I'm like, how did she do that?
What else can you do? Because And this is the thing I learned from my dad over many years, because he used to do live events going all the way back to the 70s and the 80s. He used to get a yellow legal pad and he would write down step by step what's everything you need to do from the beginning of the morning of a live event through the end of it. And he told the story about he had gotten Mickey Mantle to promote a baseball game in the 80s. So Mickey Mantle was still around, but he was old, he was retired, probably not the most polished public speaker. and he made a list of like the 50 action items that would need to get done, from picking Mickey up at the airport to ending the live broadcast and being done with it. And they were working the plan, checking stuff off step by step. The one mistake he made was that when they got a microphone cable for Mickey to make a presentation from the pitcher's mound, that microphone cable was about 30 feet too short to get from where to get all the way to the pitcher's mound. And it's, you don't know the things that you don't know until you get there. But they were judiciously planning every step in the process, but there was that one little minor detail that creates a problem. Because you get there and you say, yep, I can't get the guy where he needs to be. So now he's stuck awkwardly in the middle of baseball time. But you never make that mistake a second time.
Exactly. So how did he recover from that? He just broadcast from where he was at?
Yeah, and it worked out fine. It was just a little different.
Yeah. It probably just looked kind of a little bizarre.
But hey, that's not what people are there for. They're there for the razzle dazzle. So
exactly.
It's the stuff that would bother you or me, but the audience doesn't know.
Right. Well, I'm sure everybody know when I took that little hiatus for about a minute. I'm like, okay. So since you mentioned your dad, and you kind of, I guess, I don't know if you started in the business, if you took over your business, how exactly did that work? But it seems like your dad got you interested in video production.
Well, Rizzo as a business entity is a joint creation of my father and I. But he was working in marketing and advertising for decades before I came around. And he would kind of attest to the way that we stepped up our game when we got together. And I'm proud of it being a family business because, and you can kind of relate to this, my customer base is a lot of people who I can relate to in terms of life experience. We're not all exactly the same, but it's a lot of family-owned businesses, 25, 40 years old, where we've got a similar story. We might come from different walks of life, but we can relate kind of core aspects of what it's like to be entrepreneurs together. And my best customers are the ones where the decision maker is someone you can sit across the table from and work stuff out and make a plan and work the plan. As opposed to, I work with some bigger corporate clients, but you get to a point where the size of the business that you're dealing with is too big for decision makers to be one-on-one with you. Where, you go to Ford Motor Company, you're at one floor, and then any idea has to go up 2-3 floors before anyone can make a decision.
Exactly.
And I have clients like that, and I love clients like that. But 80-20, 80% of my money comes from customers that are all kind of fitting into the same profile, where they aren't necessarily small businesses, but the decision-making team is pretty cozy.
Okay, so small and medium-sized businesses, pretty much. Okay, and who's your ideal client? I know that you work with us kind of because we're a charity, and I don't know if it was just us connecting or because I got you as a referral, but you have helped DBHG out quite a bit. I'm not sure that we are the typical clients that you would help. So who would be your ideal client?
Well, that's kind of dovetails off that last thing we were talking about, which is to need the kind of work that I do. Customers need to be a relatively established business with a pretty good customer base to have the clarity of understanding of to put messaging out there. Because, and I'm proud of the work that we've done together.
Yes.
The Detroit Business Hub Group has kind of had to pivot as we've learned and gone through growing pains and figured out where the niche in the market is for the Hub Group.
Right, exactly.
And we've had to change creative directions to accommodate that. Typically, my customers have been established long enough to know what they're known for in the marketplace. To know what people know them for, but also to know what they need to tell people more about. Because if you've been in business for 20 years selling red widgets and yellow widgets and blue widgets, you find that any particular customer winds up pigeonholing you as Nancy is the red widget lady. And then they go looking for a blue widget, and you say, I've been selling blue widgets for 20 years. I've told you to buy blue widgets 20 times, but you have me in the back of your mind for this one product or service, and you don't understand the width and the breadth of what I do. I tell customers, Rizzo, the work that I do does not make sales. What I do is I create tools that the salesperson goes out and uses to do what they do best every day. We're the sizzle, not the steak.
Mm-hmm.
I provide video the same way that you might have used a brochure when you were selling, insurance or real estate or anything back in the day.
Right.
That's a tool, but you, as a sales professional, are the one going out and doing the work.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, even with all the technology and the podcast and the video, the polished video, the polished pieces, solicitation material, people still want that face-to-face connection and interaction.
Business is built on relationships at all levels.
Absolutely. Right.
And I think the thing that the internet and the video lets us do anymore is level the playing field, so that smaller businesses with the right marketing tools can look as big or as tough or as effective as other larger competitors.
Right, right.
But you still need to, as an individual, get out and make that connection. And your success will be on the strength of your ability to, put yourself out there and prove to whoever you're selling, for whatever you're selling, that there's a trust and, a bond there that you've got to be working on all the time in any vertical. I don't care what you sell.
Right. So let's pivot to social media, because we talk about social media a lot. It was instrumental during COVID-19, still is, because as much as we would like to, we can't always make those face-to-face connections, because of social distancing. And I know even have a couple of conversations with you and inviting you out to a couple of our events this year. You said you don't really feel comfortable around larger crowds. So a lot of people have your same sentiment. How are you making those connections through social media? Because it's still networking, even if you're not in person. It may not be as effective, but it's better than not doing any networking at all. So,
well, for me, and I think a lot of business to business organizations, I don't use social media to create the network. I use social media to maintain the network.
Okay, that's good.
My social media presence is about reminding existing customers or people that I've met but haven't done business with what Rizzo is up to and what we're about. Because whether that's behind the scenes material from where we're on locations, or little bits and snippets of finished work that's in process, or even just stuff that's not directly client related but kind of talks about the ethos of what we're doing. It's just a reminder to reinforce that relationship that hopefully I built when I met someone the first time. The kind of stuff I'm talking about, which is I don't care about cameras. I don't care about lights. The technical details of what I do are not what makes sales for Rizzo and my client base. It's about if you get to know Michael and you get the impression that I'm bringing something to the table that sets me apart from my competition. Because if I make sales, it's either with someone who is not yet considering video and I create in them the understanding of how it can be effective, or, and this is less common, someone's looking for video, which honestly doesn't happen that much. And when they are looking for video, they're going to be looking at multiple video providers. So I've got to make the case for why I'm more interesting than the 2 or 3 other competitors that you might be looking at. And it's not what brand of camera I've got or how many lights or...
They don't understand any of that stuff anyway.
Exactly.
This isn't something they do every day.
Yep. And I have competition who gets stuck in those technical details, and 4K, who cares? Doesn't matter. Tell the story.
Exactly. So you're on LinkedIn quite a bit. We're friends on Facebook. I love your Facebook posts because I know you're usually going to put something kind of quirky on there, really funny. And I feel like I have gotten to know you a little bit better just from looking at your Facebook feeds when I am taking a look at them in your microblogs. So I guess it helps when you don't, we definitely haven't spoken as much this year as we did last year. So in between those times that you do have those, in-person touches or over the phone call touches with your clients and prospects, I think it helps quite a bit. They get to see, and this is something I have to work on, like being more of like a total person, not just talking about the business all the time or your nonprofit. It's like, okay, well, what is there? Share some interesting tidbits about yourself. Like, what'd you do last weekend? Or, small talk. What kind of movies do you like? What kind of books do you like to read? They want to get to know you as a person, but it might not be types of things that they might just straight come out and ask you about.
And
so
then,
it's just easier if you just volunteer the information on your own.
That internet small talk goes a long way to covering touch points in between the major business.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to be sold all the time.
Exactly.
And that's the fastest way to kind of burn a bridge in a business relationship. In my experience, is if every time you're calling, it's how do I get more money out of it? It doesn't work.
Yeah, business.
Yeah.
Or once you've kind of sold everything you have, then it's like, oh, who else can I help? Do you have any referrals for me? And it's like, no, you're kind of annoying. Go away.
But the best business relationships are when you stay top of mind with your clients so that when they come up with something, they come back to you. And that's why you're right. There's a lot of stuff that I put out in there that's just personal. It's just personality stuff to keep Michael on your mind. But also the work I'm doing for other clients, because you'll see something that isn't exactly what you need, but spurs a thought process that says something like this, but this way might be helpful to Detroit Business Subgroup or somebody else.
I've never actually on Facebook, I've never actually seen you market your business. You just kind of, from what I see, it's mostly almost all personal.
Yep. But people like what I'm cooking.
I love watching your cooking stuff and your outfits too. I like watching what you kind of, like your fashion taste is comical sometimes too.
It works.
Yeah, people like that kind of like quirky stuff. Like I could totally do, the girl next door kind of series, and people might get into that. I don't know.
I got problems with the girl next door. That's another. That doesn't go out on social media.
Okay. So I know that when we asked you, like, what major platform do you use to prospect to potential clients? I thought you said you like LinkedIn quite a bit. Is that correct, or am I confusing you with somebody else?
If you're looking for new prospects, LinkedIn is pretty much the only way to do it. For me, there's some application for Instagram because I'm in content creation. I create video for a living. But I think, again, like your Instagram and your Facebook, for the most part, I prefer not to be connected on Facebook to business acquaintances. You're in the inner circle. Most people don't get that. I find that I try to keep Facebook personal because I think it's just time and a place. If you look into more of the research about it, generally speaking, the people you connect to on Facebook when you use Facebook as a social media platform are not necessarily your best client prospects. It's quantity, it's not quality. Instagram can be better. But LinkedIn is the best, especially if you're asking about meeting people as opposed to maintaining relationships. Instagram, again, you can put out a lot of material. Some of it's business, some of it's not business. And again, maintain that relationship and stay top of mind. But for finding client prospects, LinkedIn is really the only option. And I think their LinkedIn Pro Tools are pretty effective. They're not inexpensive. They're not that expensive. For, I believe it's about $60 a month once you go all in for a year. If you're going to make good use of it and put in the time and put in the research, it's worth using. Because I don't go into any initial meeting with anyone without having spent a fair amount of time checking out LinkedIn profiles, getting a sense of their background, and coming in with 4 or 5 observations about what their career has been like and an interesting question. Because if you don't show up having done your homework, well, then why are you showing up?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, do you usually work with small businesses? Like, you don't really do like promotional and entertainment videos? Are you primarily into business or corporate video production, or are you just
business to business? There is some business to consumer in there. I've directed commercials, but even when I'm doing that, my client is still business to business. If I'm directing a commercial that's for a product or service, it's still usually going through an agency, where the person I'm selling is a creative director at an agency, where I've got to make that connection and make that relationship work. So it always fundamentally, for me, works out to be business to business.
Yeah, and so it would make sense for you to be on LinkedIn. Like 3 of our current members, I met them on LinkedIn. Didn't know them from anywhere. And just called and struck up a conversation, and it doesn't happen like right away. You kind of, like, as they say, you have to date before you marry. So 2 of them were Brandy Shelton and Deshandra Johnson. So I invited them to help us out with some of the training last spring at Eastern Market.
And those connections
Shots on top. Yeah, and then from there we had some lengthy phone conversations and said, hey, I think you can be an asset to the organization. We'd like you to come on board. So about both of them probably came in the summer, but we had originally met maybe like February. So sometimes it happens, over time as you're building that relationship and building trust. So yeah, LinkedIn is probably our best prospect as well, or place to prospect. Interestingly enough, I met Dale Grant on LinkedIn too, he is also a member. He's an accountant. And he said he gets most of his prospects from Instagram, but that might be because it's more business to personal.
But yeah, that's because it's business to consumer. Even when they are business to business clients, it's still the nature of accounting, whether it's personal or business to business. This kind of relationship thing I'm talking about. Because fundamentally, I can't speak for Dale's business, but I would have to imagine that you're pretty much providing a service that nobody understands that well, but there's a whole lot of CPAs out there that can do what Dale does. What makes Dale different is Dale's personality, and you get a sense of Dale and say, I'd like to work with that guy.
Yeah, and he's very active in the community, and he volunteered when he first started out. He volunteered a lot of his time to helping like nonprofits. He gave out a lot of free information, and then as he got his name out there, of course, now he charges a fee for his services. But that's how a lot of people start out, and there are quite a few businesses that have a problem with that. They're like, hey, I can't work for free. I'm not out here volunteering. But you got to get your name out there some way.
And it all comes back in one way or the other. And there's organizations I wouldn't help out for free, but there's a lot of organizations that are nonprofits that are doing community service where they rely on the help of volunteers. And I'm proud of the work that I do for organizations that serve a civic purpose. And it's, that's different from, well, no, I'm not going to work for free for somebody making some money off of it. That's a different thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we all have to do as entrepreneurs, and be smart about moderating, who gets our time and who deserves their help.
Right. And I think just the fact that you're doing things in the community, that goes a long way because, definitely. Because, like press, PR, public relations, sending out press releases, you don't know who's going to pick that story up on the wire. And you could actually end up getting some media coverage that you weren't even expecting just because you went out there and you were a good Samaritan. So like you said, how many more clients can you gain? And that's free advertising for your business. When you go out and help somebody else, now you're like, on the front of a local newspaper, somewhere in the local newspaper, and people see them like, this looks like a good person. I think I'm going to give them a try to work with them if you're selling something that they're looking for at the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it seems like a win-win to me, but people think differently. So I think it's a good networking strategy to use to help build up your business. I would say definitely like in the first 5 years, because you got to get your name out there some way. You're either going to do it by, we've talked about, like mass marketing, or just getting out there and networking and meeting people face to face. So one is like you said before with Facebook, it's quantity versus quality. You might meet less people, but if they, introduce you to 2 or 3 people that they know, then, that circle just continues and it gets bigger. Your web starts to get bigger and bigger. And then you get to the point where you don't have to pick up that 10-pound phone anymore and, and cold call or, pound the pavement and go door to door, business to business, trying to promote yourself and get your name out there. Business will start coming to you. And that's kind of when you see that turn where you're no longer going out there and working so hard to, keep food on the table and pay the bills. And now you have people come to you and you start to develop a cash flow, and you're starting to keep your sales funnel full. You're going to see that like going out there and helping people, it goes a long way. So,
and in my experience, you never stop beating the streets, because when you get to a level of success where you do have a reputation in the marketplace, and you do have not just a customer base, but people who know you that bring you good clients.
Yeah, now you get referrals too.
You get those referrals, but it also just means you have more time to do those things in the community that, again, bring something back to you. Because some of the nonprofits that I've done volunteer work for have had people volunteering who are more powerful, more established, more significant in business than I am. And those relationships have been hugely important to me in my career, where you see people who are much more established, whether that's hospital systems or nonprofits or incubators, where those connections do come back.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I think it's definitely meeting those people that you might not otherwise have any chance of meeting in life. You could meet them through a nonprofit opportunity, like sitting on a board, volunteering. So you just never know, who you're going to bump into. It doesn't hurt to have one or two favorite nonprofits that you either give to once a year, you go to an annual event, because it couldn't hurt. And if it's something that you're passionate about anyway, you want to be there.
And you've got to build communities. I'm not a church going person, but how many people have made good business connections through a church or a synagogue or another house of worship, where that's where they interact with a lot of people who do a lot of different things, and you wind up working with people that you know.
Yeah, I think the only thing though with churches and organizations like that is it has to be authentic. You have to be there because you want to be there. And
I think just be there to troll for business.
That's not going to last very long. Usually people, if you're just going there for the business and you leave, people are hurt or offended, and bad news travels fast. So it's just best to if you're going to join something like that, that you be really sincere about what you're doing.
Of course.
Yeah, that's kind of an unspoken truth, but I don't know.
It's spoken. They tell you.
Yeah. Well, you go to some churches now where they even tell you when you join, they don't want you promoting your own business here. So I understand it, but at the same time, if somebody else asks you what you do, you should let them know what you do. So. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, we said today we're going to be talking about marketing trends. So what are some of the current trends that you see in the marketplace today concerning social media or media in general with this post-COVID-19 pandemic going on?
Well, I don't even go so far as to call it post-COVID, because unfortunately Michigan's got some bad numbers right now, but thankfully we're seeing a corner turning. And we were talking about this a little before the show. At least in my business, I see a pent-up demand for marketing material that we all kind of lost 2020, for better or worse. A lot of time that we weren't doing, we were just focusing on making something work however best we could. But that means there's a lot of pent-up demand where we just need to get the word out on stuff that was happening before or during 2020 that I'm pretty busy right now. Because
that's awesome. I was so excited when you told me that.
They just had stuff they wanted to be doing before that they couldn't before. Or you see a lot of companies, a lot of businesses have pivoted in how they do business. And they're coming into 2021 doing things a little bit differently than they did in 2019, based on the lessons they learned in 2020. I don't think video conferencing is going away. I don't think anybody wants to go back to commuting to meetings. I don't think the handshake's coming back anytime soon. Even when we get past the point where we're still not over this virus, but once it's gone, you're going to ask yourself, well, we all got used to using Zoom and Teams and all these other video conferencing, so why am I driving 45 minutes to have an in-person meeting? I don't go so far as to say it bodes well for my business, because what I do doesn't really necessarily relate to video conferencing. But the fundamental savvy that we all kind of had to grow about lighting yourself nicely and being camera shy and kind of figuring out what we have to do, that's not going anywhere. And I don't mind it. I still take in-person meetings when it matters, but there's a whole lot that can get done quicker and better and not having to leave the office.
Yeah. Certain things I think networking and strategies that you can use to build your business. I think the in-person is important, but just even with GBHC, we moved our board meetings online. Things where you're just kind of going over Monday numbers. You don't really have to meet in person to do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
We can just do it online. It takes about 20, 30 minutes and we're done with it until the next quarter. And when we first started, I think we were meeting, I want to say we had meetings once a month. Then I scaled it back to every other month. Now it's once a quarter. So they're not that fun, they're kind of dry. You're just kind of going over business. And once, like you said, we kind of got the foundations when we had to pivot to find out where our niche was. And now that we're kind of more in our niche, all of those preliminary meetings that we had to have to find out the direction the organization was going in. And we did a lot of that just through brainstorming and
you've made
sitting
the plan
down
and working the plan.
Yeah. So then now that the plan is in place and, we do have the 501c6 designation, we don't have to spend as much time planning. Now it's kind of time to put your feet to the pavement and get out there and share what your vision is with other people. So, that planning time is not wasted at all. And I think that's maybe what a lot of people were doing last year as they were pivoting. They had to plan, and now it's time to work the plan. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So we're out here busy working the plan. What are some things that you're doing now that you've been established for a while? You're kind of like a second generation in your own business. So Mike, what are you doing now post COVID-19 to gain some customers? I know you said it's really busy, but you have to be doing some kind of marketing to be able to gain customers, maybe something different that you weren't doing before.
The main thing that I did differently in 2021 versus years past is that typically my first quarter, I try to going around for all of my major clients over the last few years and get a year in review meeting where I sit down with someone and say, hey, Nancy, here's what 2020 was like for Rizzo. Tell me what it was like for the Detroit Business Subgroup, and let's just catch up. It's not about sales. It's about how has your business changed in the last year, and how can I, as a marketing professional that we've worked together in the past, maintain my understanding of how things are going for DBH or
whoever else. Yeah.
Because I need to stay up on that. Otherwise, when you do need me, I have to be caught up on what's changed over potentially multiple years if I haven't been doing my job and staying in touch. I didn't want to go in person. That was unsafe. So we did all of that through a series of Zoom calls where I had an initial video that's, hey, here's what Rizzo was like in 2020 with some excerpts of work, the kind of stuff that if I was sitting down for a 1 hour meeting would be in PowerPoint slides that I would go through as we were having the dialogue. That took that out of the meeting and put it online in such a way that a lot of the stuff that I needed to catch others up on what we were doing was done. So those calls that I took were just about, hey, what's the customer doing? How did you get through 2020? What's different now? What's going to be exciting in 2021? And I think being flexible like that was appreciated. Because I don't mean to say that my presentations weren't compelling in the past or people didn't get something out of it. But how many people listen and how many people wait for their turn to talk?
Exactly. And they're mostly, everybody's tuning into WIFM, what's in it for me? That's kind of what everybody's station is.
And everybody needs to be conscious of that all the time, regardless of who you're talking to, because even when I present my work, I am always putting it through the lens of, here's why this relates to your needs and how I see it relating to your customers. But even in that context, even when it's presented nicely, there are still folks you're going to talk to who they don't have the attention span and they want to move on to their thing as quickly as possible. And you can, but that's the great part about doing things digitally is you can be better, a little bit more flexible in how you present stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that I liked about working with you is that you're very in tune with what the organization's vision is. And I feel like your job is to make that vision come to light through video production. And I think that's a great strategy to use with your customers. I mean, otherwise, it's like, why are you there? Because they might not know how to get that vision, how it should look through the lens of video. whereas this is what you do every day, all day long. So you're coming in as an expert for that.
For me, the medium isn't the message. I need to know what it is that's important about Detroit Business Hub Group or any customer I'm dealing with. I need to figure out, and sometimes the client knows exactly what it is they do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they need some coaxing.
You helped us with a lot of
no, this is it.
Yeah, we needed a lot of coaching because our message wasn't even fully developed. I mean, you were pretty much, like I said, you were a charter member pretty much there from the beginning. And we started out, we didn't even have a logo when we started out. So we were literally starting out from the ground, moving up. But, like you said, we had some growing pains and we've come a long way, in a year and a quarter. We definitely have a lot more growth to go, but it's because of, mentors and coaches like you and Raj that have really helped us accelerate so that we're further along now than we would have been had you all not been there to help us out. So we really, really appreciate it.
All that, though, is a sounding board for your values and what you're putting out in the world to come true. You got to bounce things off of people, but the core of it, it's always coming from Nancy.
Oh, thank you. Well, hopefully the core is producing good material and, getting good results from the business owners that we're serving and other prospects that we're attempting to serve. So we've got some really good feedback from our events, and we've got another one coming up in June. Hopefully you'll be able to join us for them soon. So tell us some of your greatest accomplishments. I mean, when you get the videos done, I know I'm kind of pivoting left field here, but once you have the videos done and your customer is really happy about the end result, I mean, what just really gets your juices flowing in terms I'm really proud of the work that I just produced here?
It's always, my success is always measured in referral-based business.
Okay.
All of my best projects lead to my next projects.
Right.
Where I make an impression on either the customer or someone adjacent to the customer, because it's not about getting paid. I can finish a project and close out that invoice, but if the client isn't proud of that work and showing it off to anyone they can any way that they can, well, then I didn't do my job right. And I will lose for that, because if that customer isn't showing it to all their friends and colleagues, well, then I'm going to miss out on the best possible audience, which are people who are other business owners or other successful folks who are going to call me after that. I can't look at my own stuff. By the time I've finished any project, I'm physically ill watching a video again, because I've been over it hundreds of times to get it right. And that's just the nature of the beast. But I know I did a good job when I get a call that says, "Oh, I saw this video you just did. Can you do something like that for us?" And it happens more often than not. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, that's how we connected, because I saw your website and I looked at a few of your videos. I'm like, he's really good. Let me see, what his fee is. And then when you told me, there was dead silence on the other side of the phone for at least a good 30 seconds. You did make it work. Thank you so much for working with us. We really appreciate that. I tell almost everybody I talk to, I'm like, yeah, Mike, when I started the podcast, I said, I'm just so used to the video production guy. It's he kind of dropped the ball. You should have seen the first couple of podcasts. Oh my goodness. I'm like, Mike, this looks so bad. I said, please edit this. So yeah, I've come a long way even with that. So that's just
you get better every day.
Yeah, exactly. It just takes more practice. And probably by the end of the year, we'll put a little bloopers tape together. We can go back and laugh at all of the stuff that happened going live. Well, anything you want to say? I don't really have too much more to add. Once again, thanks for all that you've helped us with. Marketing trends seem to be going really well with you. Why would a new company or a growing company, why would they feel like they have a need for video production? If they're not really doing commercials, what are some of your suggestions of what they could use it for?
Well, I think every company at every level needs some kind of video. Not necessarily with me, but frankly, a lot of people don't read anymore. And it's not just for the potential customers, it's for the business owner to spend some time. And we've kind of talked about this, clarifying your vision and your value proposition and what it is that you do. because if you can't boil it down into an elevator pitch and then record that, you need to spend more time thinking about what you do for a living and why.
Right.
And that level of clarity, that understanding of what you put out into the world and why your company is important and what you're doing, you've got to have that. You've got to have that clear mission statement and vision. Otherwise, you won't be in business that long. And
we live in a visual world. Now, and websites are important. We've talked about the importance of websites. I mean, Rosh and I, we went over that a little bit. Like, we both agree, like, if you don't have a website, you're really not in business. We bump into business owners. And like what I do, I bump into it quite a bit. And I'm like, well, what's your website? And they're like, give me their email address. I guess that's okay if you're working for like a what do you call it? When somebody buys a franchise and you're using like a brand name, and then, you have your little link to the franchise or whatever. But I think that the more that you can differentiate yourself and make yourself look more as an individual versus just working at a franchise, the further along it will take you. So even with the website, people want to not only see a professional presentation with your website, but they want to get to know you a little bit better. But they're not going to do that until they find out what you have to say. How do you sound? Do you project yourself as a professional? They look at, nonverbal language. All of those things you can't get off of print or even a website. That's the only way you're going to get it is through video, unless they pick up the phone and give you a call.
And everybody can get a website now. At what level ever you're at, whatever level you're at, whether that's signing up for Squarespace or finding a web partner who can design something custom for you, or going up to huge ongoing relationships with big web companies. Everybody can have a website.
Yeah.
But what you need to make any website work is good imagery, still photos, video, content. And it takes a certain scale of business for it to make sense to work with someone like Rizzo. But wherever you're at, you need to have that video, that visual that communicates what it is that you do.
Yeah, I agree. I asked Rosh the same question, like what's his favorite social media platform or what he uses most to market. And he says he uses YouTube. I'm just kind of curious as to find out, with you being in video production, I know you have your own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Why do you prefer LinkedIn over YouTube?
Well, YouTube is great for hosting and sharing the videos, but not for building an audience, unless you're creating something that's going to have widespread appeal and then come up in the algorithm. If I was making cooking videos, I'd be doing a lot more time on YouTube.
Yeah, do that too.
But that wouldn't be, that'd be a different thing. That wouldn't be money.
Right.
So for that reason, I'm on LinkedIn. Because of business, if you have a consumer product and it's something that can be made interesting in YouTube, well, then you can use YouTube. But the only way to build an audience on YouTube is to be creating content regularly, promoting it, and then until you've got 50 episodes of whatever it is your show is, and then getting really, really lucky, YouTube is not going to build you an audience or find you a customer base. YouTube channels, usually it's editorial content that builds and maintains a following. And then you need millions of eyes before there's really any money in it. And it's just a different thing.
Right. It sounds more like the quantity versus quality again. It's probably, in the beginning anyway, your first 5 years, it's probably going to be more beneficial depending on what you're selling or what service or product you're offering to make those individual connections versus trying to reach the masses.
The only consumer product I can think of where a YouTube channel went out and sold the product was the Blend Tech blender, because they went out and made Will It Blend, where they stuffed stuff in a blender and they broke it. And that was funny. That's why it worked. People were convinced that you'd toss an iPhone in a blender and make the smoke come out. And that's only because that bit worked for the product. If you don't have that, if you have a clothing line, no one cares about your YouTube channel. If you're selling pots and pans, well, then you could have a cooking video series where you use those pots and pans. But the vast majority of businesses it doesn't make sense. There's no way to demonstrate the product in a way that people are going to want to watch those videos just on the face of them.
Yeah, the ones that I watch a lot, they're more informational. They're offering a service. But I will say that there was one lady, they have like a lot of how-to videos on there. And
Sure.
there was one YouTube channel that when I was looking at how do you grow your YouTube channel, and she this was a woman over 40, and she had a channel about how should women over 40 dress. And I guess like some of her videos like have almost 1 million subscribers or something. So I'm like, just go buy a magazine. It just doesn't seem like it's that deep, but she does have quite a following. So how long she's been on YouTube or how long it took her to build that channel, I don't know. But
if she makes any money at that, it's through sponsorship of the videos. The video is already in and of itself. She's not trying to sell you clothes or some other product or service. And it takes a whole lot of work and a whole lot of character to build a following like that where it's worth any money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for the valuable information. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Hopefully we'll have you on the show again post COVID-19. You got any closing remarks?
No, just glad to be here and glad to see the Hub Group continuing and succeeding into 2021.
Sounds good. Same to you as well. Tell your family I said hello. Hope everyone's doing well, and we will talk again soon. Hopefully I'll see you at one of our events before the end of the year.
Yeah, catch you later.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Bye-bye.